Hello, New Covenant Parish friends. Good to be with you to look at another scripture reading from this week's lectionary passages. Today we'll look at the gospel text from Matthew 23, 1 through 12. And the way Matthew records Jesus' words can sometimes really slip up on you, and that sure happens here. I mean, over and over again, you find yourself reading along, thinking the text is talking about other people back in Jesus' time being criticized for this or that. And then with a single word or turn of a phrase, all of a sudden you find your name being called out by Jesus. And that's what's going on here. It sounds like Jesus is really getting after the scribes and the Pharisees for coming up short in a lot of ways. But then Jesus turns to speak directly to us readers. And this starts in verse 8. It's there that we discover the real point of this text is not to condemn Jewish leaders in Jesus' day. Instead, it's aimed at Christian readers who are not allowed to remain observers as Jesus criticizes others. And we should have seen this coming back in chapter 22, where Jesus is debating Sadducees, Pharisees, and Herodians. And notice the audience changes to the crowds and disciples at the beginning of our reading. Now he's talking to us, but the third person language he's using makes us think the text is still exposing the sins of the religious leaders who are strong against Jesus. And our strong natural desire to judge others makes us want to side with Jesus as he gets after naming other people's flaws and failures. But starting at verse 8, he draws us into the text. And not on his side, but on the side of the scribes and the Pharisees. What's the issue? The issue is Jesus doesn't want Christian leaders acting like leaders of the church in his day. He wants all his followers to be servants, humbly learning from one instructor, Jesus, verses 10 through 12 tell us that. He also warns us about using fancy titles for leaders. In verse 9, he says, just do whatever they teach you and follow it. It's in verse 3. So how do the scribes and Pharisees serve as negative models for us? Well, basically, they're not practicing what they're teaching. Their lives don't give evidence that they take real seriously the law they're always debating about. And as Jesus has said before, the issue, it's not the content of their teaching, it's about the living out of their teaching. And he gives us several examples, Jesus does. First, the scribes and Pharisees multiply specific demands of the law to the point that it becomes a horrible burden for ordinary people. But the leaders either don't bear the burdens themselves or don't provide help for others as they bear them. And this creates a huge gap between the professional leaders and the ordinary people. Second, the religious leaders of Jesus' day make a show of their leadership. They want their deeds to be noticed. They want their religious status to be recognized. One badge of honor, they wear big oversized phylacteries. These are leather cases worn on the left arm and forehead with Bible verses in them. And then they have extended fringes at the bottom of their robes, tassels. They symbolize their bondage to the law. And they crave attention at all kinds of social functions, always. Third thing Jesus brings out, the religious leaders crave titles, rabbi, father, instructor. And for Christian leaders, when pride attaches itself to these titles of honor, a fundamental failure is revealed. That is, the playing down of Jesus as teacher and instructor and God as Father. See, Jesus is lifting up a model of the Christian church here that does not include this authoritarian kind of figure called a preacher, pastor, doctor, whatever. A person who stands up, dispenses truth to a bunch of adoring followers. Instead, Jesus is thinking about a community of equals where everyone are students of Jesus and children of God. The truth is, when we properly recognize divine authority over us, human authority holds a lot less importance among us. Every time. The last two verses in the reading talk about a reversal. Also, we see many times in the Gospels where greatness is measured by service. And in God's way of measuring things, the humble, people who maintain integrity in life and avoid showiness in leadership, these folks will be exalted. So for us, whether leaders or followers, Jesus won't allow any of us to stand back and criticize the scribes and the Pharisees. Instead, using them as negative example, He tells us we need to seek a righteousness that goes beyond theirs and take up a style of leadership and a following that acknowledges one divine source of authority. That is, Jesus as our teacher, helping us to know and do the will of God our Father. And that is a vision of our life together as God's people, as Jesus sees it. So may Jesus see it reflected in us, my friends, day by day in our lives together. Good to be with you this week. God bless you. See you on Sunday.